Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years. Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community. I'm Mary Kate Karr-Petras, and with me is Karen Charles. Karen is an event specialist with Husqvarna Viking, and she is here today to show us how to make unique curved borders using machine embroidery, right?
Absolutely.
Well, these are beautiful. This is a beautiful quilt. What can you tell us
Isn't
about
it wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, Kathy Solsa, made this, and it was her first embroidered quilt. She had made quilts before, but not using embroidered. The designs that you're seeing here are from a collection of small hoop embroideries. They're Husqvarna Viking designs. And after she had put them all together, she had the center of the quilt done, and we were trying to figure out what we could do to make it a little bit different from the outside normal, quilt borders. And we came up with the idea of using this reverse applique embroidery design. It was set up like this, and we're going to show you how it would stitch out with a different one. She did some free motion quilting, and that was a little bit of a unique experience for her too. She went around. You can see how the designs really pop when you're stitching around them. Used rayon thread with the blocks, and they're a 3-inch block to give you an idea of the proportions of this. But the border really does enhance the overall quilt and adds kind of a level of interest to it that you couldn't have done with just straight borders.
Right, right.
I have another design that I'm working on. Let's see if I can get it out here. And I've created 3 of the 4 layers of it, and it's ready for the next piece. This again was another set of embroidery designs. Both of these come from Mitering Applique, and they are set up to be an applique type of border.
Okay.
It could be used for not only quilt blocks, but anything. And this could be shower curtains or drapes or, a skirt. You could use this type of technique. But incorporating into quilts was kind of a unique idea, and I really enjoyed the idea of kind of planning it. Now I've just got to make the quilt that's going to go along with it.
But like you said, just changing out the border, changing out this design gives you a whole other look.
Totally changes it. And you can see this is being the purple next to it. It just changes the way the quilt looks completely. And mitering the corners is actually the easiest part of it, because when I'm planning a quilt like this for the border, I would decide where the center of it was and then just stitch out on either end. And when you get down to the whatever it is, it's going to be the same place, and it just automatically meets up with each other. So it's pretty easy to do mitered corners.
Great.
So we're going to move over to the embroidery machine. I'm stitching this design out on a Husqvarna Viking Designer Diamond Royale today. It's a gorgeous machine, does beautiful embroidery and sewing. And I have one at home right now, so it's nice to be able to use the same machine I have at home.
Yeah.
I am stitching the first color out in white. We're on a purple fabric, and you can see that I have the 2 layers of fabric together.
And you've got a stabilizer
and
there too.
Yes, a tearaway stabilizer underneath. And just to keep them together so that they stayed in line with each other, I did a basting stitch so that I know that they're going to be lined up together. On the screen you can see the embroidery design I'm going to be doing. And I'm not sure if it's in the correct place right now. It's pretty close because this is a big design. It fills the whole hoop. This is 360 by 200 hoop, which is quite a large hoop. I'm going to go into design positioning, and I'm going to check to make sure where that point is up here. So I'm going to go up to the top left-hand corner, and you can see where this is lining up here. I'm sorry about this. It's right at the edge of where that fabric was. That's where I stopped it. But for my purposes, the most important thing to me is that the flower is going to cover this edge. So I'm going to come back, and I'm going to put a marker stitch right over where the flower is. Get it over here. And then I'm going to go and see where that point is. So that is the center part of the flower where it is lined up right now. And if I wanted to zoom in, I could zoom in and see exactly where that's going to line up. You see the green stitching first?
Yes.
That's where the first stitches are going to be of the basting stitch. So I think I'm pretty much in a perfect position. It's going to stitch right here, and it's going to go and do the outline basting stitch for me to be able to cut away the fabric. So I'm all set in design positioning, and the only thing I have to do is press the start button, and it's ready to stitch. White thread is I'm using so you can see the design.
Right.
And you can see it's going to line up. And that's perfect.
Okay.
So what it's done is given us our line for us to be able to cut in our fabric. Because we have the yellow fabric, wait a second, I might have to take this off the hoop to do it.
Okay.
And we'll just put it like this. Okay. And your goal is to kind of come in here close, get it a little more comfortable here. There we go. And these applique scissors have got a nice sharp point to them. And I'm holding my hand. They've got this double curve, which I love. It makes it really simple, and it's very ergonomic for you to work with. And just by holding the fabric up, I can get in there nice and tight.
So this is the reverse applique portion of it, where you're applying the top layer, a large top layer, rather than a small shape.
Right, exactly. Okay, and at this point, we're ready to put it back on. Now, I'm not going to stitch it out. I'm going to stop at this point because we've got all these samples of it already stitched out. But I did want to give you an idea of how it was created. If I press the start button again, it's going to do the green satin stitch over all of the edge. And then it'll stop and it'll do the colors for the flowers and it'll be done. And then I can rehoop it and move it up and then it'll be done. If you come back over here to the sample that's already done, it's seamless. You can't see where one starts and the other one finishes. And that's the way it should look. And any design that's created to be an endless design like this, you should have that feeling that you can't tell where it was started and where it was finished. And that's what makes it so special and so nice to be able to use in a quilt.
So let's bring this over and look at
this. This is a sample that I created. It was just artwork, and I turned it into a curved border.
So this is a completely original design.
Completely original design. The only difference in the way this was done, other than the fact that I did it myself, was I didn't use it as a quilt. I've made it into a pillowcase, but I thought it's an interesting idea of just seeing how you can do it. I wanted to show you on the computer how you could add this kind of stitching, because it doesn't have to be a design made for curved borders or for reverse applique. You can add that part of the stitching in there yourself and create it with any type of a design.
Okay, well, let's move over to the computer.
Okay, great. I created this design in the 6D Premiere software. I'm in Design Creator right now. When I originally added all the stitches, it wasn't in my mind that I was going to use this for a reverse applique border. It was an easy thing, though, to change that. So I brought up the design in my computer on my screen, and the only thing I need to do is go and add a running stitch in the area where I want it to be able to add the stitches. So I'm going to go to a free point line, and I'm adding a running stitch, and I'm clicking, just left click, and adding the place where I want the stitches to go. And I can kind of keep running through it. And when I get to the end, and I've got the stitches exactly where I want them to be, then I'm going to right click, and now I've got my stitches. On the bottom left hand side, you can see there's a running stitch. I have added in a black color. You can't see it as well, so I'll zoom in. Now the only thing is, do I want it to be stitching out at the very last color? No, I want it to be stitching at the very first. So I can move it up to, wait a second, I can move it up with the color change to the top by just clicking and dragging it to the top. And now it will stitch out first before anything else. And all of a sudden, I've created a very fast applique design. Look at how many designs are in there, my Lord. There we go. We want to bringing it up there. So just changing the order to the beginning will add the stitches. Then I could go back in and I could add a double stitch if I wanted to reinforce that edge, to give it a little bit more strength. But once I've finished doing this, I'm going to come back into my 6D extra screen, and there's the completed design. The first color, the blue, is going to be the line that will be the applique design. That is going to be the applique cutting place. But I wanted to give you an idea of what it would look like as a border. So because you can visualize better in the computer, you can bring in a design and then you can paste another one in and you can line it out. I can even check and see the size of it from the top to bottom to know, and I can put in my own hoop. It doesn't have to be an actual hoop that exists, but I could change it and say, make it the whole length of my quilt. If I knew my quilt was, 6 feet, I could put in 6 feet. I'm going to put in 6 there. It'll be long and thin, but you can get an idea of the visual of how it works. And if I wanted it to have marker stitches at the beginning and the end, I could go into Encore and add them in just a second.
Okay.
It's such a simple, easy process, but it's nice to be able to visualize what something's going to look like and decide if it's going to go. If I wanted 3 repeats or 4 repeats for the size that I needed, then I could know what it was going to look like. And it really does give you an idea before you go to all the trouble of putting a quilt together, whether it's going to look the way you want it to look. It's that easy.
So again, here's the sample that you were just demonstrating for us. This is what it looks like in real life, and these are different colors than what you had on the screen.
Absolutely.
But beautiful and really resonates against this red fabric that you chose for your pillowcase.
Well, and that's the fun thing. The creativity about all this is we can make a design our own colors. We don't have to follow what somebody else does, and that's what is so special to me about embroidery, the fact that we can create our designs and quilting that make it our own personal taste. And so I think it's pretty fun to be playing around in this way.
Well, it's gorgeous work. Thank you so much for demonstrating this for us today.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Be sure to check our website and our YouTube channel to see all of the other videos that we are doing with Karen, and we hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye. Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters, and Husqvarna Viking, keeping the world sewing for over 140 years.